أصحابه وبارك وسلم. أما بعد، فقال الله عز وجل في كتابه المجيد والفرقان الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فكلوا مما ذكر اسم الله عليه إن كنتم بآياته مؤمنين. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين والحمد لله رب العالمين. My dear respected elders, my brothers and sisters behind the veil, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the purposes of or the outcomes of a Jum'ah khutbah is so that the Khateeb, the speaker, brings to you relevant issues, topics that matter to you, that have an impact on your daily lives, that affect your life on earth and the life hereafter, inshallah. Obviously, we understand the political situations in back home and the issues that the Muslims are facing across the world. While those are important topics to discuss, and we have been discussing and talking and making du'as and halaqas and what have you and support. But there are also smaller but very, very important and relevant issues that we also need to discuss. Since a few days, there's been a message on the social media that's being viral about the meat, especially chicken, sold in restaurants. And one restaurant in particular where there were some rumors about the chicken that they are offering to customers as halal, as being machine slaughtered. So I find it very important that we understand, first of all, what is the difference and what is the shari'i status of halal zabiha. What is the difference between zabiha halal hand slaughtered versus zabiha halal machine slaughtered? Is machine slaughtered chicken, for instance, really halal to consume, or is it haram? We have very limited time on doing Jummah khutbah, and this is a very lengthy topic, but I'll try and hit the very important points and then move on, inshallah. First of all, the importance. It is crucial that we understand that the halal rizq that we consume affects not just our dunya and the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that form when you don't consume halal food. It also impacts your akhirah because it's a sin. And it's a sin not because some shaykh or some Maulvi Sahib who was a little angry that day wrote a fatwa. It's haram and it is unacceptable to eat haram food because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it in the Quran al-Kareem, the Kaleemullah. And the ayah al-Mubarakah that I had the privilege of reciting just a few moments ago, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us very clearly and expressly, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا ذُكِرَ اسْمُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْهِ. Eat or consume on which Allah's name has been recited upon. إِن كُنْتُمْ بِآيَاتِهِ مُؤْمِنِينَ. If you are a believer in the verses of Quran, if you are a believer in the signs of Allah, if you are a believer, then know, Allah says, that eat only that upon which Allah's name has been recited. In other words, when the slaughter is done, Allah's name has to be recited. So there is no difference of opinion amongst the fiqh scholars of any madhab or any sect of Islam that Bismillah Allahu Akbar is how the animal should be slaughtered for it to become halal. And there are other requirements, that the slaughterer should be a mu'min, a Muslim, or a kitabi, Ahlul Kitab, meaning Christian, Jewish, who are following or believing in their tradition. Because obviously today when we see and meet a Christian, not all of them are actually Christians. They really don't believe in God. So that's one of the reasons that most of the scholars say try to avoid kitabi zabah, only because we don't know. And when there is doubt, you're supposed to avoid the doubt. When there is shak, you are supposed to avoid the shak. So go with the Muslim slaughterer. So one has to be a Muslim. It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman, or a young man or an old man. But the crucial thing is that Allah's name has to be recited. And this is the theme for today's bayan, that your benchmark to determine if something is halal or haram is that if Allah's name has been recited. So when, and all the processes that are involved are the sunan in that process, meaning just the jugular vein and the carotid vein and the esophagus or the windpipe are the ones that should be severed, not the whole neck. Now if you witness somebody who's a Muslim who knows everything, but he accidentally, or he chops off the whole head of the animal, severs the entire head, that meat does not become haram. It is still halal, but it is makruh. It is not haram, it is makruh. But the ideal and sunnah method is that you only sever the two important veins, the artery, the carotid artery, the vein, and then the windpipe, so that the animal pumps the blood out and it's clean and pure. And that is the ultimate goal, that you eat pure and clean food that Allah has provided us for our sustenance. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very clear and emphatic on this, that Allah's name has to be recited. So let's very briefly go over the process of the machine slaughter. From what I have gathered in my research, is that there are a few ways. The most common way is that you have these hooks on a belt, on a conveyor belt or what have you, and the chicken is hung upside down with its feet tied, and then it goes through a few phases. One is it goes through, in some cases, very cold water, which may actually have some electric current passing through it. And this way the animal gets numb, and the brain sort of stops or slows down. The heartbeat slows down. So the animal becomes numb. So it doesn't flutters. So when it's time for zubah, it's easier. So that's one. And then it goes to the belt, and then there's this round spinning, very sharp blade knives that revolve. And as the animal comes near it, a step before that is a Muslim guy, because this is for those who claim this to be a halal machine slaughter. Why are they calling it halal? Because they have a Muslim person who is pressing the switch, who's pushing the switch by saying Bismillahi Allahu Akbar, and the bell starts. As the bell starts, the animal goes through the blade, and it either severs just enough portion of the neck to sever the veins and arteries, and in some cases it may chop off the whole head. Chops off the whole head, that's not the issue right now, because we talked about it. It becomes makruh, but it doesn't make it haram. But let's assume, for the sake of example here, that it severs only the necessary pipelines, tubes of the animal. And then it goes through. And this way, one after the other, each animal comes to that singular blade and it cuts with that singular time that the Muslim person had pushed the button. In fiqh Islami, in the understanding of Quran and Sunnah and the Al-Karima that I had the privilege of reciting, this is haram. That first animal that was slaughtered with the push of a button, that the fuqaha say is halal. But every animal that is slaughtered with that initial switch is haram. So they may claim it's halal, Zabiha slaughter, because it is slaughtered by a Muslim person, but they've really met only one of their criteria. But there is additional, more important criteria, which is that every single animal has to have Bismillah Allahu Akbar recited upon them. Every single animal individually. It cannot be that they start a tape recorder and say Bismillah Allahu Akbar after every, let's say, 30-second interval. And every 30-second interval, an animal comes near the blade and it gets chopped. So every time the animal comes to a blade, the tape recorder goes Bismillah Allahu Akbar, and the animal gets near the blade and it chops. That is not acceptable. Because, fuqaha say, let's say, Hazrat Qibla is now about to make a qurbani. Or somebody else is making, and they made a mistake or something, or they forgot. I'm standing, or somebody else is standing behind him, and they say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. So the person intentionally doesn't say it. Doesn't say Bismillah Allahu Akbar Zubah, but the person behind him who knows the rules and would not eat without saying halal says Bismillah Allahu Akbar. That meat is still not halal. The person actually performing the zubah, the person actually performing the slaughter has to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar. So therefore tape recorder does not count here. The person actually doing it. Some argue that the switch doesn't count because really it's the electrical current that's passing through the device, the instrument that's causing the slaughter. There's a minor difference of opinion, but the scholars come around because really it is initiated by the Muslim aqil who is pushing the button that's causing the thing. And this dalil they take from a hadith. See, everything is taken from, when you talk about fuqaha are not just coming up with this in a gathering of other scholars. Really, they are digging deep in the ocean of Quran and Sunnah and understanding that they derive from Sahaba. So there's a hadith about hunting animals. So those trained dogs are sent out to hit the prey. And when the animal then catches the prey and kills the prey, because blood has to gush out for the animal to become halal. So that way they say, because really you're not the one who's killing the animal, it's the dog that was trained to go bite the prey, deer, whatever, and it died as a result of that. That becomes halal because it's your initiation. You said Bismillah Allahu Akbar and you release the animal. You say Bismillah Allahu Akbar and you release the hunting dog. The dog goes, bites the deer, and the deer becomes halal. The question came, what about, Ya Rasulullah, we have some situation where when we go out there and we find two dogs. And I can't tell which dog killed this deer. My dog that I sent saying Bismillah Allahu Akbar, or another dog that was around there. Rasulullah in this hadith says, do not consume that meat. Rasulullah said, do not consume, because the dog that you had sent, you're not sure if that same dog which you had said Bismillah Allahu Akbar with, therefore, that animal, you are unsure if Bismillah Allahu Akbar was sent upon that animal, the prey or not. Another case scenario where Aisha, and this is in Bukhari, she narrates a story where Sahaba came. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, we receive sometimes gifts from our qawm, our people. And we don't know if they have recited tasmiyah on it, meaning Bismillah Allahu Akbar on it. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Sammu alayhi wa antum kulu. Antum kulu. Okay, recite tasmiyah on it and eat it. And this is the hadith where some of the other brothers in Islam use that to say, but khalas, even if it is not slaughtered by Zabiha halal, just say Bismillah because you have a sahih hadith. And this is where the tragedy is. Because when people go directly to hadith without the context, without the deep understanding of Quran and Sunnah and the fiqh behind it, then you are bound to make, in our sense, an error in judgments like that. Why is that not acceptable? Because the hadith is not complete when it's in this scenario. The hadith actually goes on to say, and Sayyidina Aisha, after narrating that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, go ahead and recite Bismillah and eat it if you're not sure. She said those people who had offered that gift at that time were actually recent converts to Islam. Because again, there's a fiqhi concept that if you are a Muslim and you know that you're supposed to recite Bismillah Allahu Akbar at every zabah, but because you are in a busy day and by mistake, due to forgetfulness, you forget to say Bismillah Allahu Akbar at one of the animals that you slaughtered. So you've done 50 animals and you forgot to say, that animal is still halal. Because forgetfulness is not the issue here. However, if a person knowing that this is a rule, but knowingly ikhtifafan, meaning not finding it important, not finding it as a necessary requirement to make zubah and says, it's not important to say Bismillah, what did he discuss it? He's a mu'min, he's a Muslim, he's a aqil, all the criteria are met. But he says it's not important and cuts the animal, that animal is haram. If you forget, if you're a Muslim, you know that it has to be cut, but you forget to cut it mistakenly, that's perfectly fine in the Sharia. The animal is still halal. So machine slaughter, my dear, and because of the time constraints, we'll come to the conclusion here. Machine slaughter, first of all, the first issue as I mentioned, they go through the water, cold water with current. That doesn't make it haram per se. But it is, again, comes into the other categories of makruh and all those things. Because now the animal who is made numb, heart is not beating, everything that Islam teaches us has a very strong science and logic behind it. And among the many hikmah, wisdom behind it, is that when the animal is fresh and alive and lively and the veins are severed, the heart is still pumping. And the body then contracts and releases. That contraction and releasing of the body muscles, which are automatic responses. The animal is dead. There's no pain to the animal at that point. But the muscles contract because there's still nerve endings. Because when you sever the entire body, the nerve endings are severed and there's no brain and nerve connection. Still keeping the nerves intact, what that does is that the muscles contract and release. And that essentially squeezes the blood out of your body tissues through the veins. And most of the blood is spitted out. Subhanallah. But when you chop the head off, the muscles then don't do that automatic, involuntary contractions. And therefore, the blood, the filthy blood retains in the animal. So that's one issue. But moving on, the main issue is that every single animal has to be recited tasmiyah upon it at the time of slaughter. With the machine slaughter, unless what they're doing, if for instance, because some fuqaha have suggested, then why don't you do this? Have the animals come on a conveyor belt and have 3 people stand there alternately, and each say Bismillah Akbar when they go. So the process may be the same. It doesn't slow the process down. But every animal, every single animal, and this is the key take-home message, every single animal has to have tasmiyah, Bismillah Akbar, recited upon the animal. And therefore, based on this understanding, the fuqaha said, it is unacceptable. The animal that you consume, that you are offered, if it is machine slaughtered, is not halal. Now I respect the owners of this particular restaurant whose message is being viral on our social media, that they are offering machine slaughtered halal. So they are being honest. And subhanallah, this is very important. At least they have told us. They're not lying to us. They are clear about what they're offering. Our duty is that not to eat it. And this way, hopefully, we can encourage them to bring to us halal zabiha, hand slaughtered. However, machine slaughtered, and there's more details, but inshallah, this time we can talk about it later after this or any other day. But machine slaughtered meat, and most of the restaurants, unfortunately, we find out in some cases, are machine slaughtered chicken because it's sold in bulk. There are certain other companies like Crescent and others who claim that they have individually hand slaughtered animals, both beef, lamb, and chicken. And when you go on their websites, they have certifications from Sharia board and all the others, and they explain the details. So unless in the apps now is it important that every single one of us needs to do all that research? No, Islam doesn't encourage that. The scholars will do the research, and you would follow, because this is putting excess burden on individuals. But once you are advised that machine slaughtered is not acceptable, then we cannot consume that meat as halal. That is not halal anymore. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا مُحَمَّدٍ وَعَلَى آلِهِ وَصَحْبِهِ أَجْمَعِينَ. And those who have not prayed sunnah may do so right now. Barakallahu feekum.